Welcome everybody to another edition of WCW 2005 here in TEW 2020, as it's time for the second half of our mid-year look over, and this is going to be focused on basically the rest of the wrestling world, including our dev feds, some looking around the world, focusing on what other companies are doing, some check-ins on the available wrestlers, and other fun stuff like that. But first, we're going to begin with, of course, the pushing of what we need to do here. So, as I went over before on the first show, because of the change in the calendar of pay-per-views, the annual Mayhem tournament is coming in August instead of in November. So that means we're going to be pushing the Mayhem tournament pick'ems to basically now, well, at least starting on Monday, until basically, the end of the Bash at the Beach pay-per-view, at which point, starting the next week, the Mayhem tournament will start on all the shows, ending at the Mayhem pay-per-view in August. So, as part of that, what I do is every year I, give you guys the bracket, and you can go ahead and do your predictions, and there are prizes for who does best predictions and who, does second place and third place. So how it works is you go to this website, which I'll include in the description below, and also it's in sort of the community tab of the page here, as it's, challenge/2005 Mayhem. You sign up, and then you just predict who's going to win, first round, second round, third round. There are some spoilers for some new wrestlers coming to the roster, but, they'll be spoiled in the next couple weeks anyway, so I don't consider it a huge deal. And how it works is pretty simple. For every point in the first round, for every prediction you get right in the first round, you get 1 point, second round is 3 points, third round is 5 points. And remember, the finals is a four-way ladder match, so it doesn't matter who you pick in the semifinals, only who you pick in the finals, and that is 15 points. And the winner of the prediction contest gets to choose a match at the November pay-per-view of your choice, outside of, a world title match, a wrestler brought up from developmental, a dev signing of your choice, a dev release of your choice, and one push and D-push of the wrestlers on the roster. Basically go with that. And then if you get in second place, you get a title match of your choice at a Nitro or Revolution, push and a D-push. And of course, if by some lucky chance, say both of you, one of you say push Shane Helms, one of you say D-push Shane Helms, whoever, did better in the predictions will, get to choose that. And then I'll just, say to the other person, just pick somebody else, and a dev signing of your choice. And then third place gets a match in Nitro Revolution of your choice. That's not a title match, and a dev signing of your choice. And also, if I get more than 10 predictions, I will be doing a random draw that'll be allowing you to dev signing of your choice. So again, you go to the website, and again, I'll either contact you via the email that you sign up with, or if you don't do that, give me a, in your, basically your username, you give me, Reddit username, Twitter username, some way to contact you outside email. Otherwise, I'll be contacting you via email, and then it's up to you to respond at that point. So that's the first part. The second part is, of course, it is the end of the half year, which means it's time for the mid-year awards that are not part of the game, but otherwise that are voted on by you guys. Now, previously I did this via Google Docs, and even though that was nice, honestly, it was kind of, it was, you had to go to the link, you had to go scroll through, and all that fun stuff. So what I've decided to do this year, instead I'm going to do all the awards via the community tab. What I'll be doing is beginning today, maybe not exactly when this posts, but, shortly afterward, is I'll be posting, basically an award or two per day. Well, maybe not per day, but every few days. And we'll basically going through the various, best face, best heel, best match. I might have to do some weirdness where it's maybe the best singles match, best tag team match, best women's match, because of how YouTube was only 5 choices for polls. Or if we'll figure something out. Regardless, you'll just go to the community tab. I'll point it out on the actual various videos, and just go there, vote, and we'll see who wins. And again, same thing as before. That'll basically run through the month of July, and then I'll go over the results. And that's just a fun thing to see what people like, what people don't like, as far as the actual series goes. Now that if you notice, it's June now, so that ends at 31 days of May. Unfortunately, I couldn't do the last 2 days only because combination of a train being late as I was coming home from the vacation during Memorial Day, and a bit of, as you can maybe tell from my voice, a bit of some stuffness and coughing fits meant I couldn't really like consistently do a video along with timing. So, but hey, I feel good that, after saying 30 days of May, sort of like out of just as throwing it out there, I got 29 out of 31. That's, not bad, not bad at all. I'm sure there are other content creators who try to do the same thing and fail, even though it's a little rougher for them because they're actually doing editing. While I'm just throwing random videos up here. Regardless, that's it. But let's go into the various other companies around the world. Look at some news, how things are doing. But so let's go ahead and start with our dev feds, or I guess our developmental roster, not our dev feds, since that isn't quite the same thing. So dev fed, starting with our male side, is first off we have Adam Ortiz, who is a regen. He is 21, flabby middleweight, which is kind of interesting considering his face here. He's 6'2", 252. He's a good brawler, but that's sort of it. Like, his charisma and microphone is meh. Star quality is not really there. Yeah, I mean, honestly, he has, let's see here. He has 6 months remaining on his deal. He's somebody who I'm really gonna have to think about as far as like whether he gets brought up or not. It just depends on whether I like actually see something in him. Because if you look at his skills, like if you track the progress, especially on stuff like charisma and microphone, it hasn't really been doing much. Like, he sort of is what he is, which is sort of like a mediocre wrestler. So I'm not sure there's much else to do here for him. Austin Creed is somebody who I just literally signed a couple months ago. So he just entered wrestling a couple months ago. But I feel okay signing him immediately because he started his career with NW Wildside in real life in this part of Georgia. So I figure he would have like eventually ended up in WCW in this reality anyway. So I'm okay starting him. Like, he literally just started, so he'll probably be in dev for a while. And honestly, if somebody says to bring him up early, I'll probably just ask him to, choose for somebody else. Brett Major, he usually, eventually turns into decent stats. He's also just entered wrestling, but he's young enough and has some star quality. So I figure sign him up, see how he, gets through. If he becomes something great, if not, he'll eventually go out onto the wider wrestling world. Chance Prophet, really solid wrestler. Not the best charisma or star quality, but he can be a character, and he'll eventually be a character on the main roster, but I'm not going to reveal that soon. So he'll be up on the main roster sooner than later is all I'm going to say. Hector, he works in our dev fed, doing dev fed stuff, nothing fancy there. Jamie Tucker is our ref for the dev fed. Jonathan Figueroa is an announcer regen who's actually pretty solid. Like, he's a 77, he's an 81 announcer, so like, he might eventually be a replacement on either on Nitro or Revolution if Tanae or Shivani start to go, or he might eventually be a replacement for Hudson. Just depends how it goes. Kento Suzuki is somebody else who is sort of plateaued. He's just not that good, unfortunately. He still has good star quality, so he might be somebody who I might bring up for a short run just to see how he does on the main roster, because he might be somebody who figures out what to do on the main roster, or somebody who I figured out a good gimmick for, a good storyline for, or he might be somebody who in 6 months gets let go. It just depends. Kurt Stallings is a regen. He's been sort of around the wrestling world, not doing much, so I signed up for a dev contract. He's a good brawler. He has really good menace and basics, and that's about it. So if he does do anything, it'll be as a sort of a monster character, and we'll see how that goes. Like, because he is a 6'7", 291, so we'll see how that, goes. Mark Kapani, the future Muhammad Hassan, he won't be doing that character in real life, because I'm not a total crazy person, but good star quality, decent other stats. Again, he's somebody who, hasn't been doing much here, because I just signed him, not that, because, he's basically has 3 months remaining, and he's sort of, like, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like, he's basically been sort of stuck, like, not doing much in the actual ring, which is something I'll have to figure out. Matt Cross, he's somebody who is probably going to eventually be brought up to the main roster as a cruiserweight, just because, like, he has the good flashiness and aerial stats. He doesn't have much in charisma microphone, but who does on our cruiserweights. And he's somebody who can be, built to be something more. And he has somewhat of a different look than the other guys on the roster. Matt Morgan is Matt Morgan. So, yeah, he is, if he turns into anything, he'll get up to the main roster. If not, he'll be quietly let go. Ray Gordy. So this is a sad thing. So this is when we're going to reveal some behind the scenes stuff. So what was going to happen as part of the storyline with Brother Ray, The Truth, and Gigantes is Gigantes was going to get taken out, and Ray Gordy, after being gone for a year, was going to make his triumphant return attacking the chosen few after he was basically turfed out after getting injured, and it was going to build to a great storyline involving the chosen few, hopefully going all the way to Starrcade. But then what happened is he got a major staph infection and now will be out for 6 more months after being out for basically a year. So he basically got a year of in-ring time, and they got a month of in-ring time on the dev territory, and then got injured again. And he only has 5 months left, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do with him. Because he is decently talented, and he has a good angle to come back with, but I don't know if in 6 months that'll be the time to do it. Ricky Steamboat, honestly, he's somebody who I could bring up to be a road agent, but he does well down here, and I like the idea of Ricky Steamboat being sort of our unofficial trainer. Ryan Drago is another cruiserweight, basically was signed because he had good chemistry on a random a Saturday night with another local worker, and he's doing all right. But again, Tony Jones, Tony Jones is still stuck in dev for the same reason he never got on a main roster in real life. He's sort of blah. Good psychology though. So yeah, it just depends on whether I figure out a good character for him or something for him to do. And then we have Trevor Rhodes, who has decent stats, good psychology, fun, good menace. He has the fun character, so he'll be probably somebody who comes up to the main roster here pretty soon, just to see if he works out or not. And then let's change it to our females, our women, I guess is better to say. Then we got Amazing Kong, who still, is still working, still getting better, really good brawler, good start quality. So one thing I am thinking about is sort of the Revolution women's roster is getting bloated. So it might be time to actually end sort of the reign of just women being on Revolution beginning next year. But it's something that'll depend on how the rest of our women's roster is doing and all that fun stuff. Annette Blanchard, who I still haven't given a picture to, is a regen who was part of the power plant, who we signed. She starts out with good sex appeal, decent star quality, and okay microphone and charisma, but that's about it. So we'll see how she does, if she actually builds something, or if she's somebody we quietly let go. Ariel is actually really good in the ring, but not great star quality, not great charisma or microphone. So she might be somebody who I might eventually let go, just because there's no spot for her on the main roster, and no great great what's the word I'm looking for, great storyline to build her up with. But maybe she'll be good enough in the ring I have to bring her up. Becky Bayless is somebody who's honestly, if she comes up, she'll probably come up as a manager or a character like Tracy did, or Raven Rain, because she has good star quality, good decent charisma, good microphone, and great sex appeal, but in ring meh, just severely meh. Carly Chambers is another regen from our power plant. Really good star quality, decent sex appeal. Everything else is sort of just building, so we'll just see how she builds up. Sydney Rogers is another person who has sort of plateaued. I don't know if I'm going to extend her. She's just sort of been blah, honestly. Madison Eagles is slowly getting better. We'll see if she eventually rises up to where she can get to be. Because she has some good decent stats, but we'll just see what she does here. Madison Sinclair is again somebody who's sort of plateaued. There are other the other women, if you notice, have got the other women who I brought to the main roster were getting up to psychology of 70 and had green and other stats, and you notice these women just aren't getting there, unfortunately. Molly Hosaka is sort of our permanent trainer, part-time wrestler. Michelle McCool is again somebody who was signed up and as a newbie, and we'll see how she does. Miss Molly, same thing as Eagles and Sinclair, but she's getting to 70 psychology, so she might be brought up as just a good hand eventually, even if she doesn't do much in the ring. Mischief already has 73 psychology, decent stats, and has a good character, so she might eventually be brought up to the main roster when I spot for her. Misty, honestly, is a character that I might bring back. The only reason I pushed her down here eventually in the first place was in 2020 she had bad chemistry with Kidman, so we'll just have to see what that does. ODB is an interesting character. Not great stats, but she has good star quality, decent charisma, okay microphone. But we'll see how if she can actually get up to the main roster. Parita Perez, again, she's another one I recently signed, so we'll just have to see if she does. And Tracy Taylor is again sort of the same thing as the rest of the main women. So that's sort of the situation with the women is all the women are on the main roster are sort of the core of my actual good workers. So we'll have to see if these guys can become something more without sort of the help of the other wrestlers. If not, it is what it is. So yeah, that's our dev territory. One thing I didn't show last time was the top 100s, which I just forgot to do. So let's go to this year. So Super Brawl was our best show at a 94. A Nitro Slamboree at a 93 as well. A bunch of TV shows. We had a really hot run in June. So that was good. Grand American Bash was a 90, so there we go. Top 100 matches. Of course, the Assault on Anarchy had a 98. Kidman versus RVD at Slamboree had a 97. RVD versus Jarrett at Super Brawl had a 97. Eddie had a bunch of great matches, including against El Hijo del Santo. The four-way at Grand American Bash was a 94. Jarrett Evans was a random 92. Trisha versus Kim was a 91. So yeah, sort of like, these are some really good matches. Top 100 attendances. Grand American Bash, in front of 40,000 people at the that's Silverdome. At the Georgia Dome was a sort of best thing. So there we go. Grand American Bash was our best pay-per-view buy rate so far. Best rating was Nitro back in January, which is interesting. Top 100 viewerships is Rising Revolution, which I think is just because we had a really good rating because it was in Japan. But outside of that, we're doing pretty well. So yeah, again, events and TVs. We have Bash at the Beach. Then we have British Assault, which is going to be basically a UK only show, sort of like the old W, like Resurrection shows. So I might even throw it on pay-per-view in the UK, but basically it'll be something that'll be sold on DVD. Then you got Mayhem, Fall Brawl, Halloween Havoc. The November show, which I still need a name for. I think I know what I'm going to do, but I'm not 100% about it. So, and yeah, that's about it on this side. So let's now go to the rest of the wrestling world. Starting with the WWE. They just had the King of the Ring, which I'll go over on the next Nitro. But so if you look at their size, they've since the start of the year they've basically been stuck at 95 in the US. Same thing, they haven't really been growing, but they've been solid. Same situation we are, except they're slightly bigger. Let's see here. Their titles again. European champion is the former Air Paris. He just won it off Steven Richards in May. Intercontinental champion is Billy Gunn, who's a 3-time champion. He beat Christian for it in May. Women's champion is Amber James, who beat Jamie Heath for it in June. World Tag Team champions are still Tess and Albert, who won the titles back at WrestleMania. And then Shawn Michaels is your world champion, who beat Benoit for the title and then turned heel shortly afterward. Let's see here. If we go to their stables, so they have the Gaza Bruges still, which is still running well. Low Society, which is basically DX 2.0, which I'll eventually go in and just rename, which is, Michaels, Punk, Credible, Skyfall, Caleb Lynn, which is Air Paris, and Xbox. And, this really worked for me as, a new DX. Then we got the improved Team Angle, which I have some ideas for. And then we have Top Shelf, which is, replaced Scott Hall with William Regal, which is interesting, which is, ironically, that the game actually managed to put a former WCW guy in here. If we look at their roster, so if we look at their major stars are Big Show, who's the Big Show, Brock, who is now a face, still insanely over, Benoit, who's still really over, former world champion, Jericho, who's hanging around a 90, Edge, who's at a 95, Angle's at a 93, Michael's at a 94, 95, Austin's all 100s, even though he's, retired, Undertaker's 89, 90, Triple H is at a 90, despite, people hating him. Oh, God. Oh, right. Hold on. Sorry. Had a little thing pop up there. But yeah, so despite being cheating breakup, it's still weird, the game doesn't get, Vince McMahon hates this guy. At least he's doing he's going 500 now. Before he was going 52, 28, 69, 25. It just didn't make any sense. I guess he's a good worker and that's all the game sees, which is weird. Anyway, as far as stars for the WWE goes, let's see here. We got we got DDP, Kane, Molly Holly, who's still really over. Scott Steiner, Vampiro, who is about as over as when he's left, and William Regal. So that's really heel heavy, Like, yeah, I didn't even notice that. Like, the only, like, yeah, there's no, like, babyface rising star, which is interesting. Well knowns, we got Billy Gunn, who's the IC champion, and at 70 popularity. Christian, who really hasn't gotten, who the game hasn't pushed as much as I thought they would after the breakup. I mean, he's still, like, really solidly over. Like, so that's good. JB Hell, who's been randomly turned face, which is interesting. And yeah, is actually getting a pretty decent push. McFoley, who is of course semi-retired, but still really over. Orton, who they actually turned heel in game, which is interesting. And yeah, like he's went from like yeah, he's dropped a little from basically the super push I gave him, but he's still really over, which is interesting. Scott Hall, who's down a little, he's also getting a little older. He's caused some trouble backstage, so I wonder if they'll resign him in game. Shane and Stephanie, Vince is Vince, so there you go. And then if you go down to the recognizable folks, we got Albert, who's of course part of TNA, Amber James, former Amber O'Neil, who the game is actually pushing pretty well. Who is Amber O'Neil dating? Oh, right, outside the wrestling industry, okay. But again, if you look at her popularity, I don't think it's changed that much. Yeah, she's basically only a couple points higher, but they've been pushing her stronger. Ariel Belmont, who just is part of the Gallows of Bruja as Leviton's manager. Carnage Carnival, the former Homicide, who's actually been getting a decent push in game. Like, yeah, I mean, not a huge push, but like he's been doing well. I think, yeah, if we go just WWF, yeah, I mean, he's 14-2. It's all largely on heat, but still, like, not doing bad. CM Punk, who's in a weird position where he's now part of sort of like the a big stable, getting a strong push, including a really big push at King of the Ring, which I'll talk about on Nitro. Deborah, who's Deborah, part of the new improved Team Angle. She is what she is. Devon Du Bois, who's sort of like stuck after some recent contract changes. Harko Holly, who's just sort of there. Jackie Data, who's actually decently over, but like sort of just again. Jim Cornette, who is a little more over in this reality, but like we'll see what he does since he's now just a heel without a manager, without anybody to manage. Leviathan, who's actually, obviously I've strongly pushed him when I've taken over WWE, but like he's also gotten somewhat over. Not as over as he was in real life at this point, but we'll see what the game does. Rhino, who's here. Rikishi, who's still around. Skyfall Cable Lion, the former Air Paris. Test, who's of course half the tag champs. Tommy Dreamer, who's still around. And Val Venus, who has somehow hung on to his career. Then we got some unimportant folks, and that's like Al Snow, Basher, who's Will Buchanan, Blue Boy, Cherry Slice, Christian Yuck, Christy Cummings, former Christy Reiki, Cody Hawk, who's been a jobber to start forever, Funaki, Greg Valentine, who somehow still has a job, Jillian Hall, Justice, the former Abyss, who got brought up, Lance Cade, Leonardo Michael Murray, aka Spanky, Mark Henry, who is not going to push at all in this version of reality, Matt Classic, aka the former Colt Cabana, who the game has done nothing with really, Nick Dinsmore, who's done the Wrestling Savant gimmick, except without the horrible Eugene part. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the game does, as there are some contracts coming up, and I wonder if they'll actually extend people or just sort of like let people go. Because there has been people who've been like gone recently. Let's see here. Tour Company. So yeah, it's Brock, Michaels, Edge, Angle, Big Show, which is interesting. Then if we go to the next bigger base company, which I believe is anybody else big? Okay, yeah. So, we'll go with AAA just because the next one's up. I mean, they just recently rose to big size. If we look at their size, yeah, like they've been consistently getting larger and larger, and now they're, basically the biggest company in Mexico. If we look at the roster, like honestly, it's a bunch of like, luchadors you guys wouldn't know. A lot of people wouldn't know, but if we look at their major stars, Blue Bean Jr., Steven Unico, El Canek, Victor Garza, Juvi, Piero Aguayo, And then like if you look at the rest of the roster, so we got look at stars, Cuervo, Dark Alazo, Felino, Laparca 2, who's not the Laparca you guys know, Nietzsche Almerino, aka Psychosis, Paragallo Jr., and Super Kala. So again, like the only big things like people on the roster who stand out here is Vampire Warrior, aka the former Gangrel, who's actually like a major part of their roster, who's like really over in Mexico. So that's interesting. And of course, Warrior used to be part of their roster, but I don't think is anymore. Sambu also went here. So he like yeah, that's interesting. Um, Jim Neidhart is randomly here. I think he might be like a non-wrestler. No, he's a wrestler. I mean he's not doing much wrestling. He basically just shows up for the big shows, which is interesting. I'm guessing he has that events and only contract. Okay, that's weird. But yeah, I mean, sort of not much to say here. You know, champions, American Trios champions, Phantasm Angel, Azteca, Mysterio, Sagrada. They've held the title since May. The national middleweight champions, El Zorro, he's held the title. He just recently won it from Mascara Sagrada. National tag team champions are Mascara Sagrada Jr. and Psychosis. They've held the titles. They just recently won the titles, I think, at Triple Mania. Raider Race was one of my Latin Lover. Oh, this is a tournament they don't really do. Okay, I might have to go and edit that, actually. Camp Champion to Champions is Julio Guerrero. And yeah, just sort of, you know, they're what they are. Like, you know, no figurehead. Peanut's still the owner and booker. But, you know, they're doing really well. Then we have New Japan, which is, you know, New Japan. Muto's still the booker there. Chosu Muto, Chono, Sakuraba, Liger are the major stars. Again, Sakuraba is interestingly, if we go down to Japan, like, is just stupidly over in Japan. But like he doesn't like they push him well, but they never like push him as like a top guy, which is interesting. But yeah, I mean he's Sakuraba. Chosu's, you know, again we look at the title holders. Liger just one of the best Super Juniors again. Again, in real life, Liger would never do this, but the game doesn't understand Liger is the type of booker who just like wants to put over everybody else. Your IWGP champions are still Tenzan and Kojima. Honestly, these belts are almost as big as the IWGP titles. Junior heavyweight tag champions are Gedo and Jado. Junior heavyweight champion is Tanahashi, which is weird, but I get it. G1 Climax was won last year by Hase, again. And your IWGP champion is Sasaki, who hopefully will defend the title against normal people. But yeah, we got Choso, Chono, Anoki, and Nagata. Only guy who really is Shamrock, who of course has been there. Nash, who signed after being let go by WWE. But yeah. Oh yeah, Nigel McGuinness, who's basically their top junior. And some very weird people on like the undercard, like Perry Saturn, Big Vito, Lenny Lane. But I feel like the actual like mid 2000s New Japan, that's not that far off from real life. Like it wasn't like New Japan was not the company who only hired like super indie workers or the top tier like work rate guys until like, you know, the past decade or so. But still, they're doing well size wise. You know, in Japan they've actually lost a little bit, but they're still doing solidly well. Then there's Noah. You know, Noah, Masao owner, Masao booker, Masao figurehead. Again, Masao was desperate in your life to find somebody else, but the game doesn't know that. Um, Honestly, Noah's like real life Noah. They have the top four guys, and that's about it. They haven't been pushing Kenta strong enough yet, and they don't really have. I mean, they have Samoa Joe, which is interesting, and Joe's like done well, like not super well, but like yeah, since showing up in Noah, like yeah, he recently signed full time with Noah, and he's been doing like good. Like if we just limit this to Noah, let's see here, yeah. So far, he is 16-2 Noah. So he's somebody who might actually get pushed because the game doesn't understand that at this point in Japanese wrestling, Japanese companies hated hiring from other Japanese companies. That where you signed with first was where you were stuck with forever. One recent news is they did sign Fujita, which is interesting, away from New Japan. After New Japan didn't re-sign him, so we'll see how if he's pushed. Oh, of course, the other weird thing, of course, is Shane Douglas, after he ended his WCW career, has been in Noah for the past couple years. So yeah, weird run where instead of being broken down by this point in 2005, Douglas is still out there, you know, having bangers with you know, Akiyama. Very different world. And then if we go to the medium companies, So All Japan is All Japan. Like it's basically, honestly, it's sort of like Kawada, and that's about it. Hase's still there because he isn't like a full time worker for New Japan. Keia's still unfortunately here. Then there's Henning, and then a bunch. Honestly, it's not looking great. Like, remember what happened in real life is that Muto got signed by All Japan, and Baba, Makoto Baba, basically let Muto turn All Japan into his own version of like quasi WWE stuff with lots of stables, run-ins, sports entertainment stuff, and sort of turn it into like a quasi hot company for a little bit there. And that's why they sort of are still surviving now, even though they're in a lessened state. But yeah, right now it's basically Kawada and nothing else. So we'll see how they do. Size-wise, let's see here. Yeah, they've been slowly dropping down, so we'll see if they can actually fix this. CML is CMLL. They still have their same money problems, which I don't get it. Like, in real life, I guess this is just a case of, like, CMLL, like, doesn't, like, in real life, doesn't pay their workers well. Like, but unfortunately, like, in real life, let me just pull up their contracts. Like, in real life, nobody is making $90,000 a month in CMLL, but because of how the game works, and so they don't get it. But CML is a very CML, like, there's not really anybody off here. The only really interesting thing is Astro Boy, otherwise known as Mystico, is still Astro Boy, so that's something interesting. But yeah, like, he's stupidly over in Mexico, 80s all over. Title-wise, of course, they don't really matter, but just to put him over, TEW Jr. is your World Heavyweight Champion. Latin Lover is your World Light Heavyweight Champion. World Middleweight Champion is Dr. Wagner. Tag champions are Bukinaro as Guerrero, as is tradition. World Trios Champion is Casas, Negro, and Electroshock. And then your World Welterweight Champion is Astro Way Jr. But yeah, size-wise, let me look at their progress. Yeah, they've been up and down, but they've been slowly growing, so hopefully they'll do better. But yeah, we'll just have to see if they actually get back to being a big company regardless. Oh yeah, only weird thing is Francine is here, so I don't know. Also, Ted DiBiase works backstage, which is odd, but yeah, if I went to every weird backstage worker that's working for companies he would never work for in real life, this video would be 3 hours long. DDT is actually like grown like fairly large, like fairly quickly. Like most of it is just because they're really over in Kanto, but they're getting over in other parts of Japan, so we'll have to see if they do. They have a really weird roster. Like again, Shibata's their main guy, like, and he still does MMA stuff, and he's in the mid-60s, so yeah, it's very weird. But yeah, he's with Michinoku Pro and DDT. He like left New Japan or was still not signed. I forget exactly, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, but their roster is very interesting. Like, their King of DT their openweight champion right now is Hanma, who's somebody else who's gotten like really over. Sugawara and Miracle Man are the tag champs. TV champion is Churusanego because they do intergender matches because it's DDT. So they have a really weird, like, let's look at their major stars here. So the major stars are Higari Fukuoka, Shibata, Toyota, Hanma, and Toshi Uematsu. So it's basically a bunch of weird, like, mid-2000s guys that the internet loved and top Joshi workers of the time. It's a very weird roster. Michinoku Pro is sort of the same thing. Again, size-wise, they've been slowly growing, but they're also losing money, which is interesting. But yeah, they have Suzuki, Otani, Shibata, Hidaka, Chad Collier, who's had a very interesting, insanely great career in Japan. Like, yeah, he's like mid-60s in Japan. So yeah, he's actually also a very good worker. Just no charisma or microphone. So yeah, but also Kid Guzman is weirdly over here, which is interesting. Paula Ring is again a backstage worker. Jinta Sasaki still around. Gato's still working here. Lisa Bisco, Mugu Yuro didn't retire. She's still working for Michiko Pro. Oh, right. This is a very odd lecture. So we got BJ James, who's working for Michiko Pro, which is odd. Shinya Makabe, former King Kong. Then we got BB Hulk and Super Crazy. That's a group of 4 people. But yeah, it is what it is. Like, Suzuki's the owner, Shizaki's the booker, and yeah, 4 guys are the 4 guys. 0-1, again, Hashimoto is here. Otani's the booker. Hashimoto's the figurehead major star. He didn't die. And they have a very interesting. So we got Barnett, Akebono, Hashimoto, Otani, Hidaki, Kunyaki Koboshi, Chocobo Mizuki, Scott Norton, Tiger Mask 4, Masato Tanaka. Like, it's just sort of a roster that makes no sense. Size-wise, they've been sort of stuck where they are. Titles-wise, tag champions are Akamura and Poison Sawada. International Junior Heavyweight Champion is Yushiu Sasaki. World Heavyweight Champion is Otani. And there you go. So that's for that. Tournament X, which has survived in Mexico with Skates Ullner, Ultimate Dragon as the booker. And they have a very interesting sort of roster here, as they have El Dandy, who recently signed for them, Ultimo Dragon, Universal 2000, Rey Mysterio Sr., Joker, yes, the Joker from CCW, is now a fairly decently big indie star in Mexico, sure. Loki, who that's where he ended up instead of the indies, and a bunch of other random guys, including Hook Bomberry, Luckstar, and Stuka. And then we have Smalls. Just point out if there's anything here. AWQ, of course, are DevFed. A to Z, which is a Joshi Fed that came up. Nothing too interesting about them, honestly. Big Japan, which still exists. Suzuki and Oga works for them. Bam Bigelow works for them. So is John Zanzig. Paul Bear worked for them, which is very odd. Combat Zone, which is still around. They're actually doing well. Sandman, Blade, Jerry Sags, Thrasher, Balls Mahoney. Again, a very weird roster. Dragon Gate is around, but they're not doing great, honestly. Sema steps down as their booker. Their owner took over as booker. Tagagi's their top guy. Sema's around. Aguila. But yeah, this might be a case where Dragon Gate dies before they become Dragon Gate. EWA in Europe is around, not much. The only weird thing is Green Mara worked for them. I don't know. French Wrestling Alliance, of course, the sort of first big British indie fed. Guy Japan, they're still around. Heartland, of course, one of the WWE's dev feds. IWA Puerto Rico, Rick Steiner, River Animal, Jerry Sags. Sort of hey, we have one half of tag teams that matter. Major League Wrestling, who, of course, hasn't been such a big thing since we're still around. But he's have an interesting roster. Jerry Lynn, Mark Marrow, Jimmy Rave, Paul Bearer, okay, Laz, Adam Jacobs. New Wrestling Evolution, which came up in real life because of the Italian wrestling boom, or the Italian WWE boom, but they just sort of exist. One Pro Wrestling, which is another UK fed. Osaka Pro, which is Osaka Pro, nothing too fancy about them. WA All Stars, which again in real life only existed because WCW wasn't around, and Australia One Wrestling. But they're around, but they have a very weird roster, and I don't know how long they're going to last. WC is still around. X Law exists, but I don't know how much they'll. I guess because the sort of indie fed is made up by Tournament. Tiny's. Let's see, anything released. Deuce Your Roof, which I sort of created and had come in. They're not a huge company, but they're doing all right. Dublin Championship Wrestling, nothing too fancy there yet. Grand City Quebec is another company I made up so some indie workers would have somewhere to work. Ross Hart, Bray Wellington, Rene Dupree, some guy named Kevin Steen, who knows. Guadalucha, again, another company that I came in. No owner, no booker, but they exist, which is very interesting. Let's see here. Italian Championship Wrestling, sure. Pro Wrestling Integrity, which is the company I made up to replace Ring of Honor, since they are now Ring of Violence, as Rob Fine is their owner and Rob Black is their booker. Again, and they're doing okay. Again, not a lot of the ROH roster is now working for either us, Japan, or WWE, so that's interesting. Pro Wrestling Kingdom, which is a new Japanese fed, which is sort of a more I guess you could call it MMA style fed. And they're not doing terribly, but yeah, they're not doing great either. So that's interesting. And then if we go to insignificant feds, we get to the very fun stuff. So yeah, All Pro Wrestling, which still exists. Australia has no roster yet, so that's interesting. So yeah, Super Gals, which again is a women's indie fed that I created just to see what would pop up. And they're sort of hurt by the fact I've hired all the good women's wrestlers. So their top star right now is Esther Moreno, Lizzie Borden, Lexi Fry, Simply Luscious, Mickey Knuckles. So yeah, they need sort of the new the late early 2010s indie women's to start showing up. And hope I don't steal them immediately. But yeah, that's sort of the wrestling world. So the other thing I want to do is give some people some ideas on if they win predictions or just like see how this world is turned up. I'm gonna do some searches for some wrestlers and just show you who's like actually a good wrestler in this version of reality. So again, if we go to reset, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep everything active alive, but I'm going to limit to anybody under 30 because let's be honest, I'm going to hire somebody who's like 35 as part of our dev roster. So I'm just going to put hire them and can work in the US. So there you go. So that's what I'm going to start with brawlers who are over 76. And it's basically just roadkill, and it's roadkill. And we dropped this down to 70 though. So we got Christian Perry, who's a regen who I never picked a picture for, who's just basically a brawler, and that's about it. Maddie Tembrelli, who's a women's regen who's pretty good at the menace and brawling. Marcus Miltech, who used to be on our dev roster, who I let go. Martin Stone, who's not actually bad, but has not a great look. Roadkill, and Yuki Miyamoto, who's a random deathmatch worker. So there you go. Hardcore, 70. Danny Havoc, Joker, Justice Pain, Nick Cage, Nick Mondo, Yuki Miyamoto. None of these people should be surprising. If we go to 70 for technical, probably, yeah, okay. So Bryan Danielson, who, okay. Here's the interesting about Danielson, is he had his run with New Japan, and since then, he just, hasn't been working. So, I'm at the point where I'm thinking about signing him, and usually I wouldn't sign him just because, it would be too much of just an obvious thing to do in this game, but, he's really good. I wouldn't super push him, but he's also not doing anything. So, yeah, he might be somebody I pick up, or, if there's a diff signing, he's something you might want to look at. Chris Charisma, who's just a random guy who has decent technical stats, and really stupid charisma microphone stats, which lets me think he's somebody's friend who made this mod, or I don't know. Kana is Kana, but here's the thing, she's somebody who I would probably veto just because a Joshi women's wrestler is not getting signed even in 2005 where women's wrestling is more over. Well, she's only 23, so I want to see what she does over in Japan. Kaio Naomi, Kushida, who's with Dragon Gate doing well. Mitsuki Mothman, Mono Collection AT, who's also unemployed, which is interesting. Musasa of Death, who's a regen, who basically is just a good technical wrestler, and that's about it, with a very weird name. Shingo Tagaku, who's Shingo Tagagi, and Steve Douglas, who's again a wrestler with randomly good skills. If we look at Ariel, 70. Okay, that's way too many people. Let's limit this to, let's try 76 to see if we get to a. Okay, so that's better. Okay, so basically, there's lots of people like 70, 75. So Aguila, who's Aguila, former WWE guy. Amazing Red, who's Amazing Red. Luxor, who's a good luchador. Pac, who again is really young, so I probably won't sign him yet. And Jason Cross, who has no charisma, which is the main reason why I haven't picked him up. Again, flashiness, let's try 70 first. Way too many people. Let's try 76. Okay, so this sort of limits. So we got Aguila, Amazing Red, Derek Sparrow, who's I think a regen. Yeah, he's a regen. Good flashiness, good star quality. So he's somebody who I might actually find a decent picture for. For Glevitt, I mean, it's Finn Balor for Glevitt, whatever you want to call him. He's still really young though, so we'll see what he does. Frank Gazarian, honestly, I'm giving the other companies time to sign him and see if he does anything before I pick him up. Icarus, I mean, he's all right. No star quality though, so that's the problem. Jay Lethal, again, young, so I want to see what he does on the indies before I pick him up. Darrell Clark, again, he's somebody who I might pick up, or wouldn't be terrible if I had to do my dev signing, but not the greatest microphone or acting. Jody Fleisch, could have been in real life, who never just got his run in America because of just it was a different world where stuff didn't spread out as quickly. Joel Maximo, Mikey Henderson, again, another guy who was almost there, but I think left wrestling at one point. Phoenix Star, Luchador, really good. Quicksilver, you know, former part of PWG, decent in ring. Everything else, like out of the ring, is meh. Ricochet, he's only 16. I'm not going to hire him. Slim J, who again, in real life, Slim J turned into a great worker. He's sort of a meme because he's this guy who looks like Eminem who showed up on Dark randomly, but he had a really great Georgia Indie career, and like I'm really tempted to hire him, but like I just don't know. And then Jason Cross again. Psychology wise, I'm just going to start at 76 because yeah. Actually, let me just look at 80 because that would be interesting. Okay, so we got Aguila again, Alex Payne, who's a really good German worker, Batman Kunder, who's just sort of a random German guy, Hiroshima, Mossman, Milano Fiction AT, and Tiny Mouse. Then if we go down to the big thing, which is performance skills, 76 Charisma. So we got, Carlito, Chris Charisma, Darkness Crabtree, Don West, Caleb Klein, who's a regen, Okada. Who wants him? Come on. Also, he's only 17. Laz, who basically his gimmick in real life was he was basically a cross-dresser, Britney Spears wrestler. Yeah, sort of very mid-2000s gimmick. Louis Griffin, another regen, Mossman, and Miss Natural, who might be a possible signing a pickup. We'll see. Microphone wise, so we got again Charisma, Don West, Graham Stevely, who's Grado, Caleb Klein, Louis Griffin, and Nydia, who doesn't quite have the look or the in-ring skills, but isn't terrible. Acting wise, again, same people. Joseph Campbell, who's a random person who trained at Ultimate University. Has a good look, it looks like, but that not even star quality. So basically, he's I don't even know what he would be, but he hasn't done much and has basically no in-ring skills. Rebecca McKean, who's another regen, created from the RH Wrestling Academy. Meh in-ring skills, good acting, charisma, good microphone, no star quality. So that's sort of the thing there. So then we look at star quality, at least 76. Again, way too many people here. So if we limit, let's begin with a really high and we'll go from there. So 90. So okay, so totally empty, which I'm not surprised by. So if we did 85 to 89. So that's Caleb Spencer, who's a regen, who has really good like star quality stats, but that's really about it. Carlito, Okada, Milano Collection AT, Rafael Andres, who's a regen, who's actually pretty solid, and Vincent Nunes, who's another regen. Then if we go 80 to 84, just as a test, yeah, we got Edwin Baroni, who's another regen, who hasn't done much. Jay Lethal, feature Ethan Carter 3, Paul Burchill, this guy, some Ryback guy, Sheamus, Tommy End, and Tyler Black. Sex appeal, again, if we start at 90, it's, Carmella, Eve Search, Chrissy Hemme, Elizabeth Canales, who I sent into into her real life career, George, former scorer George, and Maria. And then if we go 80 to 89, we have a whole bunch of women. And Fergal, because of course. Kind of hilarious. It's Fergal, it's Ethan Carter 3, and Dolph Ziggler, Tyler Black, and then a bunch of women, which is sort of hilarious. And then, last but not least, oh, whoops, oh no. Let me actually double check who that started for 90. Okay, yeah, okay, Okada, tell me what your fetish is. Okay, he is an attractive man. But it's still hilarious that he's the only guy with a sex appeal above 90. Come on now. Okay, now we got so Amy Zidian, who's the regen girl. Amy Kowalski, who's a regen, interesting. Candice Michelle, Ken Naomi, Melina, Miss Jones, Tally Madison, some interesting stuff there. Then if we look at Menace, at least 80. Bobby Reinhart, who's a regen. Charles Patterson, another regen. Deacon DeVille, who's just a random brawler. More regens. See, the thing with regens is they usually have like one good stat, but then crap everywhere else. So we'll see how that does as far as wrestling. Hansen, who's of course a future Viking Raider. Cafu, who's a guy. Mike Knox. Sheamus. Thorif Morris. You know, he'll never do anything in this business. And Zeros Preston, who's another regen. So yeah, there you go. Tyrone Evans, who I don't know who that is. And then I think the last thing I want to do is just stamina. So yeah, I mean, it is who you'd expect here, you know? So yeah, that's sort of the wrestling world as it stands. I might not be able to do it immediately with the release of this video, but I am going to do a release of the data. Just if anyone wants to play, you know, either as, you know, me, or they want to take over WWE, or they want to, like, you know, try to save, you know, All Japan, or they just want to, like, you know, create PWG before it exists in real life, or, you know, take over Pro Wrestling Integrity and create the actual modern Ring of Honor, or whatever you want to do. But that is for now, So if you like this, go ahead and give it a like, comment below, and like you know, liked and didn't like, and subscribe to our channel for plenty of TEW 2020 content. As far as everything else, I'm probably going to take this weekend off. I might not, just depends on how motivated I get, honestly. And then starting next week, I'll sort of, after I look into the numbers, what actually worked in the month of May as far as content goes, we'll go from there. But that's for now, so talk later, and adios. Have a good one.